Welcome back to Sharpen the Point. We continue our look at the Big Ten, breaking down what each team is losing, returning, and bringing in for next season. Today, we're going to turn our attention to two schools looking to fully rebuild in Purdue and UCLA, along with a Rutgers team that wants to continue to raise its profile. I thought it's done a nice job over the last couple of seasons, building even behind the Greek rifle of Callie Manis. Leading things off with this Purdue team, Ryan Brown coming back, I think, helps them and raises the floor. I thought personally he played fairly well. Um, I think many will say that he didn't play particularly great, but his mobility was solid. I thought he was perfectly fine for what this offense needed. I believe he had a stint at North Carolina before returning. I think you can build around him. I think he's better than people think, is what we'll say. Backup Malachi Singleton departs. He's going to need to go somewhere to find playing time. He was never going to get it sitting behind Brown in this situation. The running back room, Maccabee has been a pleasant surprise, I would say. He had a down season last year, but he was a pleasant surprise for a number of years. Malachi Thomas departing as well. They lose a ton of production in this area. Antonio Harris likely remains. I just don't think he ends up factoring into this situation. I absolutely love the pickup of Fame Edgeboy. Disappointed as can be that he left Minnesota. I thought he would be the next man up behind Darius Taylor once he departs at the end of next year. I still think Edgeboy maybe just makes a pit stop at Purdue before returning to maybe a higher level of competition within the Big Ten or even the SEC. Jarrett Gibson, solid addition. I did not think he played particularly well at Texas. Don't think he's particularly a great back. Would not comp him whatsoever to Edgeboy, who I've seen flashes out of and know is particularly good. I would lean on the legs and arm of Brown and then just hand it off as much as possible to Edgeboy. He's going to need 200 plus carries in this offense if they hope to maintain a solid or reasonable game script here. Wide receiver wise, I don't think Michael Jackson was particularly good. His numbers suggest he was the number one option in the offense. I personally thought that Nitro Tuggle actually lived up to a little bit of the hype coming over from Georgia. Played pretty well, did not convert very many targets, but that's due to his high ADOT of over 14 in the offense. So 50% catch rate on an over 14 average depth of target makes a little bit more sense. Would have liked them to have schemed up some shorter area stuff, but it seems Michael Jackson ended up getting most of that run. He is also departing, though, and going to South Carolina. That's going to be an issue. I really would have liked to have seen him and Brown with another season together. EJ Horton departing as the number 3. So kind of a full rebuild here. Corey Smith likely steps into a fairly decent role, in my opinion, mainly because I don't think they added very good weapons out of the portal. Xavier Townsend had an absolutely atrocious year at Iowa State after being a solid role guy as kind of like the 2-3 at UCF previously. Assad Wasim is a fine 4-5 option out of FAU, but they're probably going to lean on him more of as a 2 or 3 option. So I don't love that pickup. BC Owens, decent player out of Penn. Maybe he ends up slotting in on the outside opposite of Corey Smith, and then Townsend and Wasim end up rotating in that slot role. I don't love it. I don't think they did a good job of replacing Tuggle, Jackson, and Horton. And I think they're going to struggle for outside weapons in this offense. Tight end wise, perfectly fine. Keeping Burr in. That's going to be your top option in that situation. They replaced some depth with Kylan Fox out of UCF. So decent tight ends, but they don't rely too much on them. Wouldn't expect them to rely on them going forward. Along the line, Braden Joyner was a big loss going to Florida State. That will hurt, losing the center position. Do bring back the tackles, do bring back the right guard. So that's going to be helpful. They did lose some depth in Hank Purvis going to South Carolina. Always know that you're going to end up losing some of these higher end guys. Did do a nice job of bringing in some guys in the portal, some depth pieces out of USC and South Carolina with Banuelos, Shivers, Boaz Stanley. I think slots right into that center role immediately, and Makai Sena. So decent job out of the portal, adding some depth and adding some competition, specifically for that left guard role. Banuelos likely to have a leg up there, though. Defensively, they were awful. They can't tackle. They couldn't defend the run, couldn't defend the pass. It's likely to continue, in fairness. CJ Nunnally was obviously the standout end for them. With him departing, Kennedy, Harkless all departing, they ended up moving into better situations. You're going to have to hit the portal hard. They did okay. CJ Madden will probably end up slotting into one of those defensive end roles. Ian Jeffries returning will help with that defensive line in the middle, probably playing the 3, maybe slots into a nose situation. But overall, Rodney Laura was a solid pickup to be able to play one of those defensive tackle spots. Otherwise, I think they have some issues. Trey Moore is going to have to hit the ground running from South Dakota. He is coming off of a 7-sack season. He's kind of leveled up each of the last couple years. So I would say I would have some confidence in him. Wisdom Sims also leveling up. We're going to have to see if he's able to enter this rotation as well. But not a bad job in the portal. Just do they have the top end guys to be able to get after the passer and actually affect the run game? And actually, can they tackle? Is going to be a question mark, certainly. Linebacker wise, this is where your tackling starts and ends. I think you're buying into Mendoza coming over from Georgia. That's interesting. That's an interesting pickup. I think you're really buying into him playing more like he played at Army than he played at Georgia. And hopefully he's able to regain that kind of spark that he had previously. Manny Powell is going to be the top playmaker on the second level, very clearly. Charles Correa probably stays with him on the field, and you're trying to replace Alex Sanford more than likely. I would say Mendoza gets on the field as a pass rusher, specifically a situational pass rusher, and that's what you're going to end up having to use him as in that spot. Secondarily, lots gone again, and it was not a good secondary to begin with. So it's going to need to come from the portal. I don't particularly love any of the corners. I think Hines is okay, relatively speaking, but otherwise the secondary is kind of a full turnover in my eyes. I would say Mr. Clark. Love it when you get a name like that from FIU. He played really well for the Panthers. That was a team that it was impressive last year. If you didn't get to see them, they played over their skis. It was a team that I highlighted in the preseason as an over on their win total, and they sailed over that win total. Don Saunders, good pickup out of Utah, kind of jumped around here and there. I think Jaden Mangum probably slots in as one of the safeties here in this spot. That it's still going to be a struggle on this back end. So they're going to be vulnerable to the pass, no doubt about it. And they're going to have to hope they get after the quarterback. I think situationally, they're probably a slightly better than they were a year ago from a pass rush standpoint, but still a long way to go with this Purdue team trying to get out of the cellar. Looking at Rutgers, the Greek rifle's now gone. That's going to take away some baseline of the offense. He played better than he'll get credit for, similar to Ryan Brown. But I do love the pickup of Dylan Lonergan, guy that was touted when he went to Alabama. I, I thought he played well at Boston College relative to what they were putting out on the field. Overall, he's just more of a statue quarterback, kind of like Calais Manis. Calais Manis a little bit better of a mobile guy, but I think Lonergan has a ceiling to be able to throw for 3,000 yards and repeat a similar passing number to what the Greek Rifle was able to do. So love that pickup. I think he slots right in day one and is able to take over the mantle there for the Greek Rifle. Running back wise, he'll be able to come into a very nice situation. Antoine Raymond balled out, picked up right where Monangai left off, was a big Monangai guy, a big Raymond guy whenever Monangai would miss. So I think this is his backfield. He's going to get all the work. He's a bell cow. He's going to get 250 carries in this offense. He's going to catch the ball in the backfield a little bit. Ja'Shawn Benjamin is a good complementary piece to him. Do not care one bit that Sam Brown or CJ Campbell are gone. Neither was a particularly effective player. Thievenin is just going to take over the CJ Campbell role as an ineffective player that you're upset is on the field at any given time. He stinks. So do not count on Clay Thievenin to do anything whatsoever. Wide receiver wise, one of the most upsetting pieces for this offense in the offseason was the loss of Ian Strong and not being able to pay to keep him. Adding him at Cal, we're going to get to that when we talk about Cal because that wide receiver core is impressive. If you could have kept the combination of Strong and Duff, you would feel absolutely fabulous going into the season with the wide receiver core because Sheffield was such just a niche player who kind of would pop here and there. Now, Duff is going to have to soak more targets. I'd expect 100, 150 targets for him. And then we're going to have to figure out who the heck else is going to catch the football, which is disappointing. I really like Ian Strong as a player. So Duff is the clear one. He's going to get peppered with targets. He's a freak. I think he goes over 1,000 yards easily again. It's just what are the pieces that are going to get put around him? We're going to have to wait and see on that one. No doubt about it. It's possible that Desir Carter ends up getting on the field pretty early here. Tight end wise, offense has kind of trended away from the tight end a little bit more. I would expect Kenny Fletcher to remain the top option in the offense, but they don't use it. So not really that interested in the tight end room. It's solid. It's going to perform like it did a year ago, which is not saying much whatsoever. Now, this always scares me. So I think the right side, they're going to run behind early in the season, no doubt about it. Tyler Needham's a big loss, in my opinion. I thought running left was where they were the best last year. So losing that is going to be a pain point, and losing all of the center through the left side is not great. But Giwa, I thought, was solid, and he graded out well in pass protection. Will he be able to continue that? Can he improve upon his run blocking? Potentially. So it really is going to come down to what you're adding. You know, is Giwa going to be able to outperform Everett Small for that left tackle spot? Can Isaiah Cook come in? Maybe he ends up taking a guard role. They're going to have to figure out the center guard combo with the left tackle. I would feel best about filling this left tackle spot. I'd imagine whoever doesn't win that left tackle spot kicks into guard more than likely. Dante Chin could also kick somewhere. So we're going to have to wait and see how this line shapes out. But I think running right, they're going to be very good early. The question will become who wants to take over the center spot, which could very well be a Zielinski's transition from Gus to Hank, pretty much. Could see that very well. Defensively, they played better than they did a year ago. 2 years, a couple of the last few years. They've been decent on the defensive side of the football. But as you can see, the entire defensive line is gone. Eric O'Neill, I was very familiar with from his time at James Madison. Good player, not an amazing player. I think they actually were better off the edge last year than they were under with O'Neal there. But overall, interesting that Denagi went as well. Um, Overall, you lose a ton of depth in this situation. They rush the passer okay. They're going to need these transfers to step right in. Rondo Porter, Jaden Burnett, decent players, no doubt about it. Potential for them to, I would have more confidence in Burnett than Porter. I think Porter's going to be more of a safety blanket, safe guy like a Bradley Weaver off the edge, good against the run, less so a pass rusher, whereas Burnett's going to be your guy trying to replace the O'Neal production as more of a pass rush specialist off that edge. Jaden Lee will work into this thing right out the gate, and then they're going to have to figure out what the heck else you're going to end up with in that situation. Jabami, tough loss at the Mike spot. We'll have to wait and see on that one. I think Malachi Davis is going to have to pitch in as a situational pass rusher coming over from Toledo. Good defense there. That 7 sacks probably translates to 4 or 5, potentially off the edge here in this situation. Ty Morris more than likely ends up with a role early here, but we're going to have to check that in the off season, trying to figure those things out. Moses Walker will obviously be his stiffest competition for that Mike role here. Secondarily, man, they just took a beating in the secondary between graduations and guys stepping up and leveling up in competition. Both corners moving on to Virginia and Texas. At least you keep Kaj Sanders. That's fine. Bring in a ton of production from the back end. A ton of corners, actually. Mikey Munn, Kevin Humes. So they're going to be competing big time for those cornerback spots and the nickel, trying to see who can pop in on this spot. I think this defense is actually going to struggle a good bit. I think they'll be able to throw the football, but it's mostly going to be through Duff. So there's a lot of issues that we're going to have to sort through. Rutgers may very well take a step back if they can't. I think they're going to be able to run the football. I just don't know if the passing game is going to be to the same level, given that the receiving core is nowhere near what it was from last season. Now, UCLA. So this is a coaching staff that I'm most familiar with from their playoff run, and having been literally my team's coaching staff from last season. Dean Kennedy, Bob Chesney, Colin Hitchler, all coming over from JMU, and a litany of players coming over as well. We get the return of Nico Iamaleava. I don't know how I feel about that. I still think Nico's absolutely abysmal. I think Dean Kennedy will be able to use him. He's probably I would say he's a more talented version of Alonzo Barnett. So Kennedy is basically upgrading the talent level in the situation. Is he upgrading between the ears? I don't think so. I don't know that. I think Nico's biggest problem is his head and the people he surrounds himself with. I don't think that's any surprise to anybody. So if they can simplify the offense enough for him, which they will be able to, and he uses his legs, which he did well last season, he just needs to make the simple throws. And I think they've done a good enough job upgrading around him to make that possible. So Javion Thomas is still here. He will be in a split backfield, no doubt. Because Wayne Knight, you do not bring along with you and pay what they paid for Wayne Knight to bring over from JMU and his 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns, which I was shocked by. I'll be honest. Did not expect that out of Wayne Knight because he's small. I expected Petaway and these other guys to be able to take Ayo Ajayi. He just ran away with the competition and performed out of his mind. I wouldn't be shocked if he's the number one back in this offense because they trust him in pass pro. They trust him to catch the football. He knows the offense, and they trust him to get what's there. So Javion Thomas, previously a Cal, was a good back, spelling Jaden Ott every time he got hurt. Played well. I'm not so certain that Wayne Knight doesn't take a 50+% share with Javion Thomas being mixed in as the second guy. And then Anthony Woods maybe spelling a little bit here and there as well. But I would say Wayne Knight is your guy. No doubt about it. Now, I think they upgraded this wide receiver core massively. I'm not a Quasi Gilmer guy. There are guys that love him, guys that I respect that like Quasi Gilmer a good bit, guys that I respect that thought Rico Flores was decent. I don't think he's very good. I didn't think Moki, like Adamalalala, was just this thorn in my side that would randomly show up and score points, annoying me. But I think Mikey Matthews is plenty solid. I think he sees the field. Landon Ellis is going to grade out well, and he comes over from JMU. They didn't really have a dominant one. I don't know that he sees the field as much as you might think. Maybe he does, but I expect Mikey Matthews, Aiden Mizell to be the top two receivers. I think Aiden Mizell is a sleeping giant. He played in a very, very good wide receiver core at Florida that was extremely deep and extremely banged up. Him being chief name on that list with Eugene Wilson as far as banged up players. So I would expect Mizell could very well come out of this thing as the number one option in this offense, with Mikey Matthews playing the slot, Mizell on the outside. Brian Rowe just absolutely oozing with talent, maybe another guy that plays on the outside. Sleeper for me, I think Leland Smith is a very talented player out of San Jose State. 6'4", large frame, plays well on the outside, good high point skills. Overshadowed by Danny Scudero at San Jose State, but made these plays on the outside and was able to take a starting role from Matthew Coleman. Yeah, Matthew Coleman, who I liked coming into the season, thought might take on that Nick Nash role. But Leland Smith balled out over there. Had a 3-week stretch of over 100 yards in each game. Heavy ADOT guy. So he's your shot play guy. I think he's more talented than Landon Ellis. No offense to Landon. Did a job for JMU a year ago. I just think he ends up buried on the depth chart. Rowe, extremely talented. Mizell, extremely talented. Matthews, extremely talented. Likely the top three, with Ellis and Smith mixing in here and there. I think Samaj Morgan absolutely is awful and just abysmally bad, and should never see the football field, and more likely is a back wide receiver than anything in a P4 system. Tight end wise, they bring the JMU tight end, the backup, Josh Pfeiffer, over. The other tight end went to Florida. So I think he likely mixes in now with the top two, moving on out of this offense. It is not a tight end heavy offense. It's more of a run game, quarterback run game, running back run game, and then shot play offense. So less likely to see the tight ends involved in this thing. Offensive line wise, bring back a pair in Brooks and Yoon, but loss of DeGiorgio is probably the big standout here. And Uneji and Ford at both tackle spots being gone does create some question marks in the offense. They did manage to bring in Carter Sweezy and Riley Robel from JMU. That is going to help them out a ton because that'll fill out two pieces of this offensive line, no doubt about it. And then Indestad is an interesting pickup, potentially as the tackle position. We'll have to wait and see. They added some tackles, but not the best options from the portal. So putting this offensive line together will be an interesting task for this coaching staff and how they build around it, given the propensity of it to be a run-based / shot play action offense here. Colin Henchler, formerly of Alabama, went to JMU. Very good defensive coordinator. I think it's a good pickup for them. They are going to have to rebuild this defense, mainly up front. with Anthony Jones and crew all being gone at the top end. They do bring over both edge rushers from JMU, along with Denagi, who was previously at JMU before heading to Rutgers. Amir Washington, solid pickup from Texas Tech. I like that move. West and Gobara are the keys to this defensive line. Do they translate to the Big Ten like Mikhail Kamara did at going from JMU to Indiana? Because Sahir West is right there with Kamara as far as talent goes. The problem I have is Sahir West looked lost against Oregon. You could say maybe Oregon was that was a good offensive line. Isaiah World and that crew is very talented offensive line that Oregon had a year ago. But Sahir West did not play up to snuff in that game. So West came on very strong. He was young, barely wet behind the ears. But the kid played out of his skull to end this season and tell Oregon. I don't know if how he translates. Does he continue to get better? I think it's possible. There's two ends of the spectrum. Either A, Sahir West translates, gets better in the offseason. He's going to keep growing. He continues in this defense. He's the focal point, the actual building block of this defensive line. If they can continue his growth pattern, he could be Mikhail Kamara. He could be a guy who ends up with, being top 5 in the league in sacks, potentially. Gobara is a fabulous addition on the other side. He's safe. I think Gobara is going to be your safe guy. He's going to get you 4 or 5 sacks. He's going to be stout against the run. How does West translate? If West translates, this defensive line will be fairly decent and the pass rush is going to be good. If West doesn't translate, they're going to have issues big time on this defensive line. Linebacker-wise, they had to make some moves given the losses of Vaughns and Chisholm. Woods, solid player to be able to keep around, no doubt about it. He probably is going to end up having a role here in this system. McCulloch, nice pickup to be an outside linebacker, situational guy. Omosigo, out of Oklahoma, I think he slots in the middle. I think he's your day one starter. You might say that Spinagati coming over with them from JMU ends up being their guy. I don't think so. I think they're comfortable with Spinagati. But I think Omosigo ends up being the starter because Spinagati's kind of the backup plan in case that talent doesn't translate over, doesn't fit in the system necessarily. He's the safe guy. He played for them a good bit a year ago, but it was more so out of necessity because some guys were hurt. He is not Jacob Dobbs whatsoever. So they're not beholden to playing him, not like Sahir West, certainly. I think they're decent at linebacker, let's be honest. I think they're solid there. Secondary-wise, bring back a lot more in this situation. I think Scooter Jackson is a solid prospect that they're going to like a good bit. Do lose out on Key Lawrence and Andre Jordan coming out of the fold. I think they're solid already back there before the additions, but their additions are going to help them a ton. Tashawn James was a nice add out of Iowa State. I like the add of Tal Johnson to be their free safety out of Utah. And they're going to be pumped that they were able to bring DJ Barksdale with them from JMU. That is a starter immediately in the nickel. They loved what he did for them a year ago. He covered up a lot of stuff, was able to do a lot of things as far as a playmaking defensive backfield guy. He's starter day one. He's probably going to be the guy that they look to as far as leading this secondary, as far as being the voice in there because he knows the defense so well. So I think UCLA is going to be better positioned long term, and they're going to play sound fundamental football. just don't expect it to be an Indiana-like situation where Signetti and his JMU crew came along. I don't think you're getting the same caliber of player necessarily, and probably not the same level of coaching right out the gate. This is more of a slow burn than a immediate flash fire.